Time now for business with Kate Moody. Kate, good to see you.
Hi, Monty.
So tonight you're looking ahead to the Biden administration's plan to rebuild America's infrastructure.
Yeah, President Joe Biden on Wednesday set to begin outlining the details of what he hopes will be his second major piece of legislation following the $1.9 trillion coronavirus stimulus bill. He'll be traveling to Pittsburgh to promote what's expected to be some $3 trillion in spending on roads, bridges, water systems, and energy grids with a focus on environmental standards. Infrastructure is one of the few areas that usually receives bipartisan support in the U.S. All recent U.S. presidents have tried to overhaul it. Part of the reason that infrastructure spending in the U.S. is so complicated, though, is that most roads and public transport systems are owned at a state or local level, so even a national plan has to go through regional governments. The Biden administration has suggested it hopes to finance some of its infrastructure plan by raising the corporate tax rate from its current 21% to 28%. The International Monetary Fund is expecting to raise its forecast for global economic growth. The organization, which will release its next forecast in a week's time, said the global economic recovery would accelerate thanks to a strong expansion in the U.S. and China. Even though many European economies remain mired in a third wave of COVID-19 infections, the IMF's managing director said the outlook for the second half of the year was looking up.
Expectation is in the second half of the year, we would see the European economies on a sound recovery path. We do see the attention now being concentrated on accelerating vaccinations, and rightly so.
Today's trading action now. Wall Street ended lower, the Dow Jones slipping about 100 points from a record high. The tech-heavy NASDAQ recovered from earlier losses of over 1% to close still just below the flat line there. Apple and Microsoft shares among those slipping there. A positive close for the major European indices saw gains of over 1% for each the Paris CAC 40 and Frankfurt DAX, about half that for stocks in London. Investors in Europe encouraged by a sharper than expected increase in economic sentiment across the Eurozone in March. The London Stock Exchange could see its biggest debut in a decade when the food delivery service Deliveroo goes public on Wednesday. The firm expects to be valued at around 8.9 billion euros. It's priced its shares on the lower end of its initial range, citing market volatility. But analysts say it's likely been shaken by the announcement from a number of major investing firms that they won't buy shares because of concerns about working conditions. Like other platforms in the so-called gig economy, Deliveroo has faced criticism of its treatment of its self-employed riders. Uber has recently announced it will treat its drivers in the UK as employees with a minimum wage and holiday pay. Similar apps are facing pressure around the world to follow suit. More than a year of travel restrictions have taken their toll on Paris, Europe's most visited city. The French capital and its surrounding region have lost over 15 billion euros as tourism dried up. Ellen Gainsford reports.
It's eerily quiet in central Paris, with travel restrictions still in place and a third coronavirus lockdown. The usual crowds of tourists are absent.
Il y a plus de touristes, plus de foule, plus de masse.
Il y a pas grand monde, donc c'est ça qui est bien.
Pour la photo, c'est bien. Pour le reste, c'est un peu triste, bien sûr.
There were only 17.5 million visitors to Paris in 2020. That's down from 51 million in 2019. The president of the Greater Paris region, Valérie Pécresse, is asking the government for a 10 billion euro rescue fund. It would be good news for businesses like this crêperie in the city centre.
Un an sans touristes dans Paris, c'est une situation inédite et c'est vraiment incroyable. On est à la gorge, il n'y a pas d'autre mot, on est à la gorge en tant que restaurateur.
It's the same problem for hotel owners. 1 in 2 hotels remain closed. Overall, the region has lost 15.5 billion euros.
Il est essentiel, évidemment, de relancer le tourisme francilien, notamment dans la perspective des Jeux Olympiques de 2024, mais aussi parce que c'est une locomotive du tourisme en France. Paris est un peu la vitrine touristique à l'international de la destination France.
To help the sector rebound, the president of the region is also calling for tourism workers to be prioritised for COVID vaccines.
There you go. No sign of when those tourists will be back in great numbers.
Okay, Kate, thanks so much.